right now it's midday and there's nobody on the streets, or very, very few, with the exception of delivery people.
In this episode, Brian and I and several entrepreneurs representing real estate, education technology, and nonprofits talk about the impact that this virus is having on our businesses, how we're looking at this time, and then really what are the steps we're taking to make sure that over the next 3, 6, and 9 months, we put ourselves into a better position once this is all cleared. Through these next 75 minutes, through the insights of these entrepreneurs, it is our hope that you will gain a lot of value and insights from what we are seeing, what we're trying to accomplish, and the questions that we are trying to answer. Would love to hear from you if you are someone who's in China trying to manage your way through this, or someone who's outside thinking, oh my God, the next 3 months, 6 months, I've got to manage a team from abroad. I've got to manage a distributed team from abroad. Reach out, engage with us. We're setting up more conversations around supply chain, HR, internal communications, sales and client development and maintenance. We're really going to try and cover this, particularly from the lens of entrepreneurs and small to medium-sized enterprises, because what we're already starting to understand is that those organizations, we will be disproportionately impacted by this. A lot of policies coming out to support us may or may not work. But if you're a large organization, you have so many more resources and assets to draw off of. But how will we, as small groups of 1, 5, 30, 120, get through this time? It's only by working with each other, learning from each other, trying to help each other as a community of entrepreneurs in this space. And that's what we're going to spend our time on. We really hope that anyone who's watching this is safe, whether you're in China or outside of China, that you understand that this will pass. It's just a matter of what will be the time be, what can you use this time for, and how can we come out of this being better executives, better organizations, better teams for it. So we hope that you enjoy the 75 minutes. I will warn you, the production quality is not fantastic. We had Zoom in 5 different countries. But if you just put this on the background, you listen to it, you're going to gain a lot of insight, a lot of value from very different perspectives on tackling this problem. So with that, thank you very much. And I'm going to just open it up right away with some insights from Brian on what's happening on the streets.
Yeah, it seems like everybody's trying to get back to work, or at least half the people are. There's a lot of people still stuck in their hometowns, and they haven't been able to get back, right? So I think that's just causing a backlog in work and productivity. So that's my guess, right? I mean, obviously, for first timers who haven't worked from home before, it's going to cause some issues, right?
Yeah.
But I think in terms of the mood, I mean, I think the worst of it has passed in terms of like how bad it is. It's just more of the same, right? Every day is a bit of the same, and they're getting bored, and that's just how life is here. But
now for the foreigners that are still there, like, are they coming together? Are they closer? You're talking to people more on the phone? Like, what's going on there in terms of the community itself?
yeah, I mean, for the ones that are still here, we're sending out a lot of messages. Everyone's reaching out to each other, like checking in. Are you okay? Are you here? Have you escaped or what? And that's kind of cool. On occasion, when we try to just not to break up the monotony, we go to a restaurant or cafe and catch up for a little bit. But again, that was about a week ago, before they've implemented the new rules here in Shanghai, not allowing any restaurants to be open in at least Jing'an. That might damper the mood a little bit, because you're pretty much, you can't socialize, you can't talk to people, you can't really see your friends. But understandable given the situation.
Yeah, of course.
Great.
Let's just like get into, I mean, obviously, there's still a lot of uncertainty. I'm looking at the screen, 64,000 confirmed cases, most of those in the mainland, but Singapore, Hong Kong, Thailand. So let's just like open it up a little bit and just, talk a little bit like through the actual practical business planning and like how this has turned from, okay, we hope this goes away, to, what's the impact of business? What am I going to do? Why don't you take me through like the last couple of weeks for you? And we kind of broached this on the last episode, but it really hit. Like, we were just starting to talk about it. What's the last 2 weeks of business been like for you? And are you kind of like, oh shit, this might flip, this might year? Like, where are you at?
Yeah, there was a few oh shit moments. Yeah, definitely, for sure. There's not much you can do. You're not supposed to meet anybody, and most people don't want to meet you.
Right.
And a lot of the people that I'm interacting with have their own um, crises to deal with, right?
Right.
So, I mean, for the business and at home. And so I think there's not much happening, but everybody's trying to get a sense of the situation. The British Chamber came out with some reports, American Chamber came out with some reports, some other agencies came out with some impact reports about how this is happening. And so everybody's, I think, just trying to figure out what's happening, trying to get the data and a read on how the year is going to shake out. But for me, then that's also what I've been doing, talking to a lot of people, messaging a lot of people, trying to set up more phone
Right.
calls, and just do some more like basic work, some things that I've been trying to catch up on or whatever, trying to
Okay.
do some outreach on social media, just trying to stay sane
Yeah.
is I think priority number one, because it's so different than how business was happening just a couple weeks ago, just before Chinese New Year.
Yeah.
So it's massive changes.
And it's kind of crazy to think it's only been what, 2-3 weeks really that
Yeah.
this has been a real problem. But the way that we're talking
Yep.
about, it's almost like it's the end of the year.
It does. Yeah. There is a sense that, the first quarter is gone, and people expect normalcy to come back around mid-year. And some are saying, there'll be a bounce as soon as everything gets back to normal, or at least work starts again. But you never know, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm planning for, is just in that never know situation, how can I prepare for alternative business streams?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm thinking about.
That's interesting. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I guess
How about you?
yeah, I mean, it's been interesting. So when the last time we saw each other, I was leaving the next day.
Yeah.
I get on the plane, and keep in mind, this is before any of the airlines canceled. This is right after the
Right.
U.S. consulate killed
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. And I was saying, and it was crazy. Like, I get to the airport, I got my in-laws with me. I get them through the line really quick, and I'm just pulling
Yeah.
every card I got out. Like, I'm gold on you guys. I'm using every point I got.
Oh,
Get
yeah?
them through, get myself through, get on the plane. And actually, what
Okay.
I realized was people freaked out the 2 days before I left.
Yeah.
So oversold tickets. I got bumped up to the class above me, which I'm pretty happy about. But when I landed, I had to wait 24 hours for my wife and for Ryan to get behind me and meet me in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So, like, just on a personal level, like, what I started to really think about was like, man, we're just lucky to be together. And I'll talk a little bit about why that's important later, because there's a lot of separate families right now.
Mm-hmm.
Within a few days, what we were looking at was like, where is our team? Where did they go? We had people in the Maldives, New York, a few other countries, like, back home with their family, celebrating
Wow.
New Year. And it's like, all right, can you guys get back to Shanghai? Where are you? Are you safe? What are the conditions? And at that point,
Yeah.
Wuhan was on lockdown. So it was very much like there wasn't, it still wasn't really filtering through. It still wasn't real. People were like, okay, we hope this kind of settles out in the next 10 days and it'll be fine. Obviously, this escalated to now where, U.S. airlines are not flying to China for 3 months. I just rebooked my plane for April 28th. All the schools are shut down at least until March 2nd, March 4th, something like that. And what's been really interesting to see is most of the executives I know, most of the families I know, it's actually the schools that are the biggest problem. Like, people that got out are fine. People that stayed, they're fine. What the problem is educating your kid and also having certainty around them. So the ones that got out now are starting to put their kids in public school in the States. So on a personal kind of expat, half-pat, professional in China, the foreigners that got out, I think there's a large sense of relief. There's a large uncertainty about going back because, now people are like, well, when are we going to go back? What should I do in the meantime? There's people just like yourself. I mean, they kind of be small shops, just like myself, small shop. What's going to be left when I get there? There's just so much uncertainty that people don't have. And that gets back down to the lack of information that people trust coming out. And we can certainly talk about that because it's affecting everyone. A little bit wider than that, there's a lot of talk now about migrants coming back and factories turning on. And we have basically categorically proven that that is just not going to happen anytime soon. That a lot of the migrants, they did make it home for Chinese New Year. But once they got into the village leaders were like, you are not leaving town. You cannot leave. And if you leave, you cannot come back until, next year, basically, because they don't want this getting into the village and spreading around. And they have a real problem. Like the village is shut down before anybody. And then now there's so many controls inside of factories, inside of restaurants, inside of like even our co-shared workspaces that no one is ready for. So everyone's saying, stay at home, stay at home, stay at home. So this really leads into the next big challenge, which is how do you manage your teams when they are all at home, when you're not allowed to meet with them, when there is no physical contact and it's all being done over Zoom or WeChat or whatever. So it's a very interesting time, just a lot of uncertainty. But I think anyone out definitely feels very appreciative of the fact that they're not there having to deal with what you're dealing with on the street right now.
You got to rub that in.
Yeah, but honestly, Ben, we all wish we were there too. Like we all miss it. That's the rub. It's like,
no, you don't. You think you miss it, but there's nothing here for you to miss. Everything's changed and everything's different, right? It's just not normal conditions. I miss normal conditions, right? I also miss it.
Yeah, but can we talk about like, is it? I mean, it's been 2 weeks. Like, does that mean that it's not normal anymore? Does that mean that the world has changed? What do you think? Like, are people going to come back when this all clears?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I expect so. Everybody is going to be desperate for work and desperate for money because, I mean, just financially, it's got to be a difficult situation for individuals and families, right? So all those people, all those migrants, I'm sure they're going to want to come back. But I think what will change is the number of the habits that people will have, the awareness that people will have. At least this is my hope. And I think just like there's going to be some rust that's building up over the past couple of weeks because people are just sitting at home, not doing anything, scrolling on their WeChat, and just, Douyin, TikTok has exploded during this time just because people have nothing to do.
Yeah.
And that, this is like behavioral changes that are happening. People are just ordering from deliveries. So I think from a sociological point of view, this is almost like a very interesting case study in how like a before and after in modern times, at least, for a massive quarantine that's being done. Some self-induced, but some, as you said, are people just can't leave. So difficult situations.
A couple of the interesting industries I think are going to pick up really well from this is anything around mobile tech, for education, for healthcare, for entertainment, food delivery. Like I read a great article about the fact that, basically restaurants and malls are dead going forward because they will be forced into developing new models that basically just, for the next 3 months serve everyone. And once people are really fulfilled with that, they're not going to want to go back to, spaces. So, I mean, do you agree with that? Is that what you're seeing on the street? I mean, when the restaurants are open, are they in there, or are they really just like, I'm not going out?
Yeah, I think some habits will be hard to die. I saw there's like Guangchangwu, which is like dancing in the plazas, which is what all the old people do in the evenings, right? They're doing that online now. They all got their phones set up and they're all dancing together and having a good time. And I thought that was really funny. I mean, so when they can, I'm sure they're going to try to come back together. But some habits, like right now, people are crossing the road, not looking at the lights anymore. Like these people behind me. This is something that used to happen a lot, and it stopped over the past 2 years. Like it was super strictly enforced, right? And now people are going back to that old habit too. So, I think there's going to be some changes. For example, this lady just opened the door with her elbow. So, people didn't think about hygiene in certain ways. And now it's being forced to the top of their mind.
Yeah. So what do you think the impact's going to be to entrepreneurs in Shanghai,
Oh my God.
short-term, long-term? Like, what are you hearing from them? What are they worried about, or what are they excited about?
I think so. Some of the ones that have been here a while, they're thinking that maybe it's a good time to leave. And some of them they use it almost as an excuse. They were already thinking about it, and then now it's like, okay, here we go. There's no reason to be here because of everything that we just mentioned, right? It's too quiet, blah blah blah. But then there are some who are maybe on the younger end. They're like, I can't wait for all those old dogs to leave. I can come in and fill that void, which is also true. Right? There's a lot of other foreigners who haven't been to China yet who aren't even going to consider it anymore. And so for people who are more opportunistic, they're going to take that as an opportunity and get opportunities and get jobs or work that they might not have otherwise, right? Yeah. So I think there's multiple ways to think about it. And I thought I was really inspired as I was talking to multiple entrepreneurs or expats about how they're approaching the situation.
Okay.
But all that being said, it's still being uncertain. Sorry?
What were you hearing from them that was really inspiring or interesting to hear from?
Just that, just to think of it as like, oh, y'all think you're leaving? Okay, cool. I'm going to take that job that you would have had, right? And that didn't even come across my mind. I was like, no, I'm leaving. I should get out of here, right? But there's going to be a void. There's going to be a talent gap, or just in terms of skills that are going to be missing here because of all the people leaving, right? So I think that's fascinating and a different approach at it. But at the same time, like I said, some foreigners are just saying, okay, time's up, game's over, time to go. The economy's going to change too much. I'm not ready. I don't want to deal with that. So it's time to go.
All right.
It's on both sides, I think. Yeah.
So one of the things I was thinking about is, as a small to medium-sized, enterprise, like, we're really going to get dinged on this probably the hardest, which is what was interesting to see. The government launched probably about 10 benefits to SMEs. We're still working our way through them, but one of them was, you can get 2 months rent free. Ping An Insurance offered a new insurance package that covered you for 1 million RMB for free. You don't have to pay any of your social benefits for 3 months. If you do not lay anyone off, like say you're a 10-person shop and you got a cash flow issue, but you don't lay anyone off over the next period, I don't think there's a timestamp on that, you can get half of the social benefits that you paid last year. You can get that back this year as a kind of a tax credit or some kind of payout. Wow, a lot of SF guys on the street just waiting. Crazy. So, a lot of really interesting things happening on that side to basically, I think the government understands, like, the SMEs are about to get crushed. A couple of things I didn't like was that the banks, they can give you a loan now. They're encouraged to give you a loan. And also the rental thing, this is if you are renting from a state-owned enterprise versus, say, a private enterprise. So as we talk to our landlords, and we have 2 in Shanghai right now, one seems to be able to give us a credit. The other one is still working on the process because the owner is Hong Kong. So, there's a lot of unevenness happening here. But I definitely think that people are ready to get back to work. We've had a lot of con calls with our clients, and they're really looking forward to getting back to work on Monday physically. Everyone's been kind of working virtually. I would say the first week that was kind of cool, and it's kind of like everyone's dream to work at home, but then the reality of working at home sets in. It's very difficult to communicate with people. It's very difficult to get a lot of work done because of the uncertainty. And so you're just more inefficient right now. So what I find interesting is that, the potential here for a lot of companies to develop new processes to manage the future workforce, a distributed workforce, one where people are not coming together very often, maybe once a week or maybe once a month for meetings. I think we're going to see a real violent catalyst that forces us in this space to get better at, how do we virtually communicate, engage, manage teams? And Brian, you and I talked about that as something that you have learned a lot about over the last few years running your own shop, where everyone's spread out, different places on their own. You come together once a week. So, if you were to think back, like, what are 2 to 3 things that you think that people like they're just through their first week of managing a distributed team. What would be some tips that you would give them in terms of how do you manage this without meeting people? Because if there's anyone that's done this effectively, it's been you for the last couple of years. So any tips or tricks that we should know about? You're muted, man. Go.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, that we would be super prepared for this because people have been working from home for the past 4 or 5 years with us. But when it came time to come back to work, things were really, 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 really slow, and not much is happening. And so, and then I messaged them. I say, hey, what's going on? What are you doing? Where's the work? What are you doing? And they got no response. They say, oh, I'm so lazy. I'm so tired. I'm just sitting at home. I'm with my parents right now. I can't work, or whatever, right? I can't go out. I have no motivation. It's a weird time. I don't feel so good, you know? And these are people who've been working from home for 4 years, 3 years.
Right.
Because we do that 4.5 days a week, basically. So I think what I want to take away from that is, unfortunately, this is a very special time, and there's got to be some sense of forgiveness and empathy on that side, and saying like, look, everybody's going through something difficult. I'm trying to stay motivated, and that's what you got to do, is keep people motivated, because you can't just think of like, what's the task? Here's the task. Go do it, right?
Right.
Because all those simple things of having a face-to-face conversation, looking over a document at the same time, all of that is it's gone, right?
Yeah.
So I think you think about how are they feeling, and how can you motivate them to get back to work.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been trying to focus on, because it's a weird thing. Not everybody is.
So how do you do it? Like, what are you telling them that's working, and what are you telling them that doesn't work?
Well, what I was trying was, the economy is going to go to shit. Why aren't you doing anything? That doesn't work. So apparently fear doesn't work, and they didn't really care because nothing's changed in the past 2 weeks.
Okay.
But what I think would work, or what I'm going to try next is, I just try to check in, and when I was working with them, like on a Google Doc, we also had a phone call, and we were virtually working on the same document while on a WeChat call at the same time. And I think that helps. It's just as much feedback as possible, right?
Right.
But and personal attention, which, if you're working on a big team, obviously it's very difficult.
Right.
And I'm very lucky that I have a small team, but the reality is the reality. So you got to get back and let them know that you care about them, and that, I'm at a loss, but I worry about my own business and my own workload, and then try to spend some time on them. But when they come back, they're going to have to deal with the repercussions, not for me, of course, but from the business and the economy.
Yeah. So I took this a little bit differently. We went straight into, for hands-on task mode. So, our business is basically toast for at least,
forget about it.
Let's just be nice, 3 months, maybe 6. Taking a bunch of volunteers into a hospital is not going to be an easy thing to do. And that's going to impact almost all of our operations. I mean, schools, elderly care, we work with all the disadvantaged groups, and they're just be like, no. So a few things I did was like, look, guys, we're going to be really slow. So let's look back at all the things we've not done that we should have. Like, let's look at our training materials. Let's look at the website. Let's look at, our cash flow. Like, let's start doing like the little housekeeping things, is like the next 2 weeks when we're out, when we're definitely not together, let's just get those things done. And then day by day, we'll just kind of check in, whatever it may be. For collective is a little bit different. Sydney, she basically looked at all of our projects. I mean, first thing we do is, which of our clients or projects is most affected? What are current sales coming in that are going to be put off? And we had a couple really big ones be put off, which just, it just grinds at you, right? But nothing you can do. So what can we do in the meantime? Well, we have a few client works that are going on. So just keep that up. Let's keep going. Don't worry about it. Check in with clients, have the calls. And since I'm here and the team is there, we have to manage our calls a little bit better. We threw in two con calls a week so we can check in, be like, hey, how's everyone doing? It gives everyone an excuse to talk to somebody else in the room.
Does it work?
Their whatever they've got in the house. And then we assigned a ton of research-based tasks. One was, we have 10 to 20 events a year. So let's go ahead and get all the content. Let's figure out who we want to have speaking. Like, let's get all that done right now. So that way, when everything turns back on, we're ready and we're just at a running pace. So we just kind of work through that, and we try to figure like, what are those things that we can do now to prepare us for going forward? And then I've just been like checking in with my clients or potential clients and using this time, for myself to do a lot of business development, but just catching up on old relationships, writing a lot of content, editing a ton of videos. I think I've edited 9 videos in the last 2 days. And just, really looking at how would we learn from this as a group? Like, what about the HR situation should we take away from this and apply to the future? So, just in the case of working at home, we've been telling the team, if you keep up with your work, you might prove that we can trust everyone to do this going forward. And so we might implement a more flexible working strategy going forward. It's tough, and I'm not sure how, we're only in our first week, so it's hard to say that a lot of deadlines have been hit or missed. But on the client work, we find it's fine. Everyone's getting the work done. On the other stuff, it's going to take a little bit longer for us to work through and then, obviously get back together. So that's kind of what we've been doing. Tom, I'm going to drag you into this because you've been virtual for a while from your main team, but now this is the first time that your team has been really spread out. So, I mean, how are they doing right now? How are you feeling about managing this situation as an organization? What are some of the things that you've been looking at or thinking through over the last week to 2 weeks as the virus kind of became a topic?
All right, let's see. Yeah, so I'm based in Vietnam right now. So we have a small team down here. We have a small office. Our headquarters is in Xi'an, where we have, I'd say about 12 people. What I would say is the organization that I work with, we donate libraries. 25% of the month on a minimum, everyone's traveling. So there is, we've already had that, like working from a hotel, working from an apartment, working remotely, kind of in our DNA. It's just kind of what we do. Okay. Maybe not every day. And there's a difference. Yeah. And then, policy-wise, we created a really open policy that kind of honored the scale and the diversity of the different forms of quarantine that people are in. Where we have some people we have one person in Hubei, our country director, and then we also have people scattered around the country and in different forms of quarantine, some with families, some without. What I would say is on a basic level, I've said that there's 2 things that are important at the organization right now as a policy. It's health and family. Yeah. So done. I'm not that worried about money. So that's one thing that I'm really, we have money to be able to ride this out. And so we've been really good with our funding for the past 12 years, and that has all really paid off right now. Right. And actually, it's paid off over the past 3 years for us because, our industry has been in crisis mode. Crisis mode hasn't hit my industry in January.
Yeah, sure.
like 3 Januaries ago. So we're kind of like, it's like, all right, we have another kind of bad year. So let's just stay positive. One thing that I would say, just talking about meetings, is, we over meeting right now, which is great because people are losing their minds.
Right.
And like, multiple meetings, some video, some not. Not a lot of stuff gets done on them, but it's more just like on a
Connection,
like an emotional, just kind of like health standpoint. And we also on a task thing, like some of our team are like the business development side of things, the fundraising side of things. We're busy. So we're taking this time to kind of reach out to potential donors, and we're taking this time to redesign our communication strategy.
Gotcha.
Whereas everyone else, they're spending their time working on their education allotment for the year. So that's really good for everyone. And I think over time we're going to be bringing in those people working on education stuff into the fold as needed and as time goes on.
Gotcha.
And also, our team is looking at it 3 months out. We've canceled everything for 3 months for programs. I'm looking at 6 months.
So then from a programming donation standpoint, like you guys put in libraries in these rural areas, which are all super freaked out, right? So how do you, like, when do you start engaging them? What are the early conversations you're going to have? And like you said, you're planning for 6 months. Is that 6 months, no money, 6 months, no programming, 6 months, nothing? Like,
no. I would say 6 months of not hitting any of our goals that we set in December. I think that would be a good way of putting it. I think we're going to recover quite a bit. And I've seen this in the past, like as an example with like the 2008 earthquake or any of the other kind of things that people will like donate towards. Well, there's a finite amount of money that people donate. And so, and it's good. People should donate towards the coronavirus. And we're really happy to be recommending our donors to be supporting that right now.
Right.
But we also know in 3 to 6 months, people are going to come back to the organization they've supported for years. So we're not that worried. But we are concerned, and we do have our eye on the ball. But it's also it's a circle of concern, circle of influence. We have no influence here. So
exactly, it's out of your control. So what can you do?
Well, and I mean it's and so what we can do, or what me as a leader can do, is different than what my team can do. I mean, what I do is I'm just staying calm. I'm being supportive. I'm reaching out to people to find out how they're doing, how their family's doing. How can I support them at work? So I support people more now than I did in December. Because I have a really hands-off view of leadership. And so now I'm a bit more hands-on, but really not that much more, because we have a team that I've trusted for years. So it would be weird if all of a sudden I was inserted in. They'd be freaking out.
So I mean, the nice thing is that you're working with a lot of the strengths that you need to get through this crisis, right?
And we just, like, thank God, like October implemented a flex time program that just formalized the way we work. You know what I mean? Like we're very flexible on time, where if people need to pick up their child for, whatever, they just make up the time within 7 to 14 days. And that's it. So it's
great. So do you think that you'll learn a lot through this? Like, or are you pretty much like, hey, this is just a little bit of process improvement? Do you think that you'll get through this and you'll be stronger? Like, how are you viewing this?
I think the organization is going to learn a lot from it. This is just getting on a bike again. I mean, I've seen so many crises over the crisis over the past 14 years that like this was like, okay, like everyone else was kind of like losing their minds from the organization to CNN to my mother, all of that. I'm balancing out. And I was just like, well, let's just go to the World Health Organization website. Like, let's just see what they say.
Right.
Wolf Blitzer has no idea what he's talking about. Let's find out what the scientists say. And that's what I keep referring to people to do. It's like, what does the government say?
Right.
Not some talking head.
Right. All right. So we're going to get back to that in a bit. Yeah. Hey, Michael, I see that you're on the line. Can I bring you in? Because you're based in Chengdu, you're in real estate. I know, last time I talked with you, we were talking about some of the things that you work on. Can you just talk a little bit about like how this impact, like what are you guys seeing in Chengdu when it comes to this virus? What's the business side of this?
Rich, can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
One moment, please. Sorry about that. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Thank you.
Sorry, can you ask the question again? How is it impacting us here in real estate in Chengdu?
Yeah, and also in general, the city of Chengdu, what's it like out there? We only hear about Shanghai and Wuhan and Beijing, but what's going on in Chengdu right now? What's the general vibe, and how do you see this as a real estate developer?
As a real estate developer, Housing Bureau has basically told us not to operate. They have, because we have our property management company, so even before Chinese New Year, we were already put on alert. So our property management team were already implementing the procedures and guidelines from Housing Bureau. Right. That's from a property management perspective. From the sales, real estate development sales perspective, well, in terms of construction, that's all stopped. We were told that to resume construction, the construction company has to create a quarantine area in our construction site. And then the people who come back, they need to go into that site and sit there for 14 days to make sure they're okay before they can go back to work.
Oh my God.
Of course, most construction companies, as far as I know, are not doing that. Right. And then in terms of sales, we're told not to. We can. Housing Bureau has basically stopped all developers from selling their properties until further notice. So all we can do now is whatever we sold, just follow up with customers, doing some applications that for the ones who have already purchased. But in terms of new purchases or people coming into our showroom, that's all closed. Our showroom is not open. Sales office is not open, and we cannot open until further instructions from government. That's from the sales office side. Yeah. From the going back to work side, we have to apply for our going back to work application, where we have to fill out all these forms from Housing Bureau again. Telling them, okay, we have how much inventory of masks and disinfectants and related health supplies do we have? What is the background of all the people and the company, the staff, and what is their everyday health situation?
And how many staff do you have now? You have office staff, you have construction staff, you have
construction staff. That's by China Construction. So we don't count that. In terms of the development company, we have 35. Okay. For the construction, for the real estate company, and 150 for their property management. Property management has been working on. That's fine. Yeah. But for the real estate company, for the 35 to go back to work, we were applying for the Fugong going back to work application. In addition to the supplies in the background that I said we have to submit, we also need to submit we need to create a steering committee for the company quarantine. Also, we need to have a return to work plan. We need to do a prevention and crisis plan. Right. In case something happens, if we go back to work and we catch it, somebody is detected with virus or whatever, what do we do about it? What is our prevention plan? So things like that.
Yeah. No, it's what I found interesting is we had the same form. So actually we're staying out of the office for the next probably 2 to 4 weeks just to let that process ride through, because I think it was question number 3 or 4, like, why do you want to go back to, or why do you want to resume operations? It's like, well, to work, like to make money, to do what we're supposed to do. And it was just kind of like this ridiculous approach to, I just thought like it showed really how the economy is backseat to fixing this problem, which, rightfully so, I get it. But the hundreds of millions of jobs that are being put out for this, it's really like for yourself. So, I mean, how do you look at this? Like, is this a short term, holy shit, how are we going to get through it? Or are there certain areas that you're just locking down, feeling confident, and then focusing on the next areas? Like, how do you approach this?
I mean, we still have a, I guess, quote unquote optimistic approach, because I mean, when we had our meeting back on Monday, we were saying how, yeah, this is another crisis, but then think about the earthquake we had back in 2008. Think about SARS back in 2003. Think about financial crisis back in 1998. Come on, we make it through all those, and I mean, we find a way to adapt. That's the way we operate. Right.
So do you think that this, when you're talking about it, does this rank up there with which crisis more closely? Like SARS was, it was a very different time, but the financial crisis was certainly, quite devastating. It shut everything down in the country.
Yes.
Is there one that you're like drawing more lessons off of, having been around? Because you guys have been around since the 90s, right? So
1992, yes.
1992. So you've seen everything. So, what are the key lessons that you're drawing off of?
Just we take lessons from all that experience and just combine it into a new thing. What did we learn from 98? What did we learn from 2003? What did we learn from 2008? Just take whatever experiences and we just, okay, we say, oh, we did this back then. Can we implement the same thing? And how should we change it based on the current environment situation? It keeps evolving.
Yeah. And from your operations group, like how much extra cost or process is this forcing you to put into place for your site operations group?
At the moment, because we can't go back to work, there's not too much expense yet, unless you're talking about just more medical supplies and hygiene products and stuff. I mean, we got that, but that's in view of all things, I think that's minimal. So,
okay,
not much yet at the moment.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I think what's killing everyone right now is just the general level of uncertainty, whether it's opening up your office or it's getting your kids back into school or, knowing which airline is going to stay open. This is the thing that we kind of keep going through. And so for me, the process, so far has just been, figure out what focus on what you can work with, and then leave all the rest for now. I've really stopped looking at the numbers, like maybe once a day. So, because like yesterday had a huge jump, but I think I knew about it like maybe 18 hours after it came out. And I've just, whatever. It doesn't really affect the way I'm looking at this. It's really just looking at the different aspects of the business and trying to plot out like what does 6 months, 12 months, 2 years look like. Because I don't want to waste this time. Like I don't want to sit here in this room and just, watch Netflix and let it all go by. And then in, 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, we all turn back on and we're all rusted to our seats. I think the fact that people are ready to get back to work. And I think that's something that's not being really reported is people are ready to go back to work. They are ready to get back in and get shit done.
I mean, we are already working. I've been working the entire week, at least 10 hours a day. I mean, I just got off a phone conference before, and then I checked my WeChat. That's how I found out about this meeting. But I had a meeting for our retail buildings just right before this webinar. And then yesterday I had a 4-hour call with Italy in terms of planning our retail for the coming 2 years. And then I had a meeting with the 3 property management managers yesterday morning. Before that was meeting with the HR in terms of the application for going back to work. I mean, it's been nonstop for me. There's no difference because I mean, you see me in Chengdu. wherever my laptop is, that's where I work. So for me, it's been absolutely no difference.
Okay. What about the people management? Like you've got 150 in one group, you got 35 in another. How are you managing them when they're spread out, when you're separate from them, doing this all virtually? Like, is it, Tom and I talked, is it more meetings? Is it different questions? Is it task oriented, or is it more like Brian, like you kind of set a goal and you hope that they're there in 2 weeks? Like how are you approaching that, or what are you learning?
Okay, I see it as two pieces. Let's talk the property management side. The property management side, because they were already on alert even before Chinese New Year, working with Housing Bureau, Health Bureau, so they're really on it already. So I don't have to worry about them. I just check with them if there's what is happening with every 2-3 days if there's anything new, and for them things are pretty much under control. For the real estate development side, the department heads, I mean, in a way, I see the silver linings for this. I mean, I've been trying to force my team to work remotely and using Zoom, and for the 5 years I couldn't do it, and now because of this, everybody is online now. So yeah. I'm glad. This is a positive thing that came out. Now they all of a sudden learn how to work remotely. In the past, when I was trying to get budget to approve laptops for everybody, especially department heads, so they can work remotely, they were all against it. Of course, now I don't need to say anything because now everybody has the hardware. So it wasn't planned, but the past decisions help us get ready for this type of work mode.
Yeah, but what are like the?
But
real
it's not trickled down yet.
Go ahead.
It's not trickled down yet to the staff. At least I can not only get it down to the department heads, but the department heads now, at least based on the meetings we have, they know how to ask people to work their own staff.
Mm-hmm.
But for example, let's say our BD department, which handles a lot of the government applications, registrations, and stuff like that, they go to the Housing Bureau a lot. I mean, all they can do is they go to the office when it's low traffic, pick up all the paperwork, bring it home, and try to do stuff at home. That's it. Same with accounting team, basically during night hours when there was nobody in town or in the building, they would just one person go to the building, go into the office, and then get all the USB keys, the journal entries, the books and stuff, and download the stuff and then bring it home and work. So we find ways to adjust.
Okay.
And there's not that much volume anyway, because yes, if we start selling our homes, then yes, there are a lot of paperwork and entries that sales team and accounting team has to do. But right now, since there's no sales, there's not that much to do. There's not that much payments to do. So not too many journal entries to do. As if anything, they only have to worry about the tax bureau monthly reporting. That's it.
So actually, let me bring up. I was talking a little bit about the process of getting back to work, but then also the government released a lot of kind of incentives for SMEs in different industries. Have you paid close attention to that, or are you already filling out the paperwork? Are the phone calls that you're making to the government right now trying to figure out like what relief they can give you through this process? And if so, like what have you heard, or what are you seeing coming down the pipeline?
Relief. We're hoping, of course, interest payments to the banks and stuff. Because we know, for example, our tenants in our retail spaces, we haven't confirmed it yet, like finalized it, but I'm pretty sure we're going to be giving them at least 1 month rent free. I mean, that's like a given. Yeah. We want to support them when they have absolutely none of them have any revenue. So we're all in the same boat. So that's one thing. In terms of asking for government for other incentives, don't know that much yet. Right now, the only incentive we have is that we can maybe delay a couple of days in terms of our tax reporting.
Okay.
That's to the extent for now.
Okay. Yeah,
and so then maybe asking our business partners, like our construction company, that okay, instead of the payments right now, can we since we have no sales, can we delay it a bit? Things like that, especially since there's no construction going on. Usually, if there's construction based on percentage of work completion, we do payments. But right now, there is no work, so we extend things like that. So those are the little things we're getting here and there.
And what about the banks? I mean, you guys work a lot with the state-owned banks. Are they, do they, accept that you call them up and be like, hey, we're not going to pay you for 3 months? Like, are you talking to them? Have you heard anything? But
No, right now, I mean, that's why I say we still have positive. Fortunately, we had a little bit of sales right before Chinese New Year, so we have a little bit of cash flow, so we can still service our debt payments. So it's okay.
Okay.
But it's like when we have to manage that much tightly. I mean, it happened to us before back in 2008. It's just we go back to that modus operandi.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Well, we've been going on for about an hour now. I think we've had a really great conversation from different perspectives. Alex, I see that you've been, very patient on mute the whole time. I'm happy to give you some time to ask some questions, or maybe, introduce yourself and give some of what you've been seeing as well.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can.
Hi, Richard. How are you doing?
Doing pretty
Good
well.
to see you.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's an incredibly difficult time. I think but basically I've been working on an APP, an app, education app, and before the crisis, we were all a team of about 35. We're in the office here in Shanghai, and when it really hit hard and everybody realized around about the 1st of February, and all the government guidelines came in, and operations, what you can and can't do, and basically we went back to the office and collected our computers, USBs, and then came home and downloaded it all, and we're basically working on editing anyway. So before the crisis, the team were in the office just doing editing and extra content adding to the APP. So we were in the building process of that, and I guess it's not really affected the workload because we're still building the app. Yeah. But it kind of hit me this week, really, the beginning of this week, like how serious this is, and when's it really going to end, Richard? Yeah. Right now, we were looking to come back on the 10th of February. That was the word on the 1st of February. And then the boss, the government as well, we're going with the guidelines. Well, okay, now it's going to be a couple more weeks, probably March the 1st. But I can see it going on to April the 1st, May the 1st. When's it going to end?
Sure. Now, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, you're in the tech space. You're a creative. You have a studio where, people think that you are in the perfect place to be virtual, be distributed. When it comes to this, like, what are the big challenges you're facing? I won't, like, separate from funding, like just the operations, the people. Is it communicating with them? Is it keeping them on task? Is it the ability to come together and shoot through ideas? Like, what are the real challenges?
You mean in terms of the staff, the company, the employees, or the?
Yeah, just like, here's like the workflow, like, you have your 35 people, but your industry is one that should be okay just staying at home on your computer. So what's been the difficult aspect of this?
In fact, no, that's exactly right, and that's where it is. It's nothing's really changed. In fact, we're just not going out, and we're not going to the office daily. We're working from home. And before the crisis, we were editing and adding content, and uploading and servers and trying to get the operation ready for a big launch. Okay. So yeah, it's not really affected anything, not really changed anything. All we do now is daily we do our work that we're allocated, that we know we have to do, and report in, and just give everyone sort of signs in every day that they're okay, haven't got a virus, haven't got a cold. And so there's no real communication, just everyone's at home doing their stuff. Yeah. Now, it's quite strange.
If this goes on to 3, 6, 9 months, how does this impact you?
I don't think it'll impact us that much.
Interesting.
Because our operation, our project, we can do remotely. Yeah, we can do from home. So we can just keep adding. Our time scale was probably June, July was when perhaps the content was ready for going online, we're doing online teaching too. So that's something we're setting up now around China, around the provinces. So a lot to do, a lot to think about, but yeah.
So if you're in online teaching, I mean, right now you guys should be putting in overdrive so you can launch this sucker so that you can get into the space, right?
Well, we were, just as the crisis hit, that was just before the crisis hit, that was the next step now, is online teaching this year. So it was to set that up. And so now people at home, all the specialists guys, IT guys, and they're all putting that together now. So I think, it's just part of the program.
Okay.
So we're still building that, but we're not online teaching at the moment. We're doing some demos, and that's where we are.
How do you see this as an opportunity? Because I've got an 8-year-old son. Formally, we're not allowed to go back until March 2nd, but I've heard from a couple of university deans that they're not planning any school this year or the next semester face to face. It's all going to be virtual. I mean, what are you hearing from your friends in ed tech, or in that space, or what are you seeing from your competitors? It's exciting for you, because this for you must be, in a way, it's like if everyone stays at home and they can only learn on a mobile device, it must be somewhat like, hey, this is a great time to learn, pilot, whatever.
Yeah. Well, that's what the team are working on now, I think. And it was a bit of now it's kind of catch up and progressing it more aggressively now. So they're building it now. We're behind, to be fair. We should have been ready for this, if that's the right phrase to use. This crisis coming up has opened up the doors, and as I think Michael actually said, or somebody, virtually now it's a boom time for some people. We're not there yet, unfortunately, but the competitors, like I've seen so many online people, even individuals on TikTok and whatever, they're just piling it all on there. And a lot of the APPs, maybe EF and other big education ones, already out there in the schools. They're already pushing around the schools and doing virtual, lessons. So
Crazy.
For us, at the moment, we're in the mode where we're still building it for them. So we weren't quite ready for that.
Right.
Can you hear me, Richard?
I can. You're breaking up a little bit, but it's good. No, I mean, so it's a very interesting thing. Like, education for me has been a big issue. A lot of my friends, I mean, I'm sure you're talking more of the Chinese. A lot of the expats right now are talking about, repatriating, putting their kids into public school, and then kind of seeing where it's going. So I kind of I want to end this up, because we're at about an hour and 5. But this is where I think, like, maybe we can all do a roll around. Is what do you think's going to happen the next? Let's say this goes out 6. Let's just say like 3 more months, where really not a full quarantine where we're at, but pretty damn uncomfortable level of controls in place, hard to travel, impacts meetings, businesses, events. Like, where do you see this impacting your business, and what steps are you going to take over the next maybe month to make sure you're in the right position for when that happens? I don't know, Alex, you're off mute, so do you want to just take that?
Yeah, it's an extremely difficult time, and I think it's difficult to predict, Richard. Everybody's on edge. Yeah. Economically for China, I think it's huge. It's going to be huge if it carries on another 3 months. In terms of our business, we'll probably just plow on, and it not really affect us in many ways. And perhaps we can improve things and get it online teaching going much quicker than we what we really wanted to do. So yeah, sorry to sound like freaking out, but I don't like the general downside of it all. It's awful for everybody, deaths and disease. Just hope and pray to God that everyone keeps healthy and this kind of goes away soon, and we can all get back to some normality. Yeah. Sure.
Well, thanks.
Going to be different.
I'm gonna give it over to Michael. Do you want to take that on next? This goes on for 3 months, 6 months. What do you do in the next month to kind of prepare yourself for that?
At the moment, we're actually ready up to not have any operations until end of March. But in 6 months, that will be March, April, May. Until May, I mean, if we have to stay in this, I guess, quote unquote hibernation mode, perhaps we could. Then of course, then it goes back to our cash flow situation and things like that. But right now we're already, I mean, because this is close to what we experienced back in 2003, 2008. That's why we have this experience.
Right.
So we could manage it. The only thing is, again, it's just operational cash flow. Can we get through that? Otherwise, right now we could survive until then if we have to.
Yeah. And then 6 months. How do you survive that? Like, do you have to call the banks? Do you have to call the government? Do you have to? What actions do you have to take to make that, work for you?
I mean, that then we'll have to see what happens then. Yes, I mean, because everything we do is so related to government, especially Housing Bureau. I mean, they issue a thing, all of a sudden strategy changes. So a lot of it's depending on what the notices that Housing Bureau issues to us.
Right. And do you think if this went out 6 months that you'd see a really big economic stimulus like we saw 2008? Like, have you guys talked through that? Are you having conversations now about what might happen, or are you just waiting?
In terms of that, I mean, we're thinking, okay, because government, I mean, okay, sales department did get back to us that the government did ask him what they can do to help us. I mean, one of the things we put in is, maybe remove or lessen some of the, remember there's like the 限价限购, where you can't, the purchase restrictions or price restrictions on housing.
Right.
Maybe loosen that a little bit. That might help a bit if things get a little bit more back to normal in the future at that time. I mean, that would help.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thanks. Let's go back to you, Tom. This goes out 3 months, 6 months. What do you do in the next month to prepare yourself?
I mean, what I would say is just keep on keeping on. I mean, I think that, we're talking about like operational cash flow, operational capital and all that. We're good. We're not great, but we're good. And we would be able to continue to pay 100% of salaries for 6 months and still be fine with zero revenue. Will we have zero revenue? Of course not. That's just not, that's not the way that our business works. So, but really for me, I think I can answer this as the executive director is I am there to support my team. I'm going to continue to support my team so that they make the best decisions going forward. And them working with our government partners and them working with, our corporate partners and donors. Everyone's understanding, everyone's being cool. So
speaking of your business model, would you be open to expanding that a little bit? Like, I've got a lot of clients going and saying, hey, we want to get involved. We want to do things long-term, blah, blah, blah. Okay. What if I work with you on a new project? You're going in and you're giving books, but now I'm going to tack on a hygiene class and throw in hygiene kits for the whole school. Like, are you open to new things that in the past, like, no, we do books, we do libraries, we do that. That's it. Will this
in every single staying one of the things that I'm the most proud of at the organization is that over the past 14 years we still donate libraries. We only donate libraries. We've stayed mission focused. We've added on teacher training to support literacy. We've added on literacy programs for children to support literacy. Now, with regards to like hygiene, what we're doing and what we have done for years is our STEAM education. And we have that in there. We already have hygiene books. We already have science books. We already have health books. Now, would we be interested in a strategic partnership with, say, an organization that wanted to work at scale and they had budget and they fit within our culture at the organization? I mean, what would be great to also add in other programming. Over in the past, we've worked really well with like government organizations in that kind of sense of partnerships. We haven't had that much luck over the past 14 years with international organizations partnering. But I mean, but we would definitely be open to it as long as we were able to stay razor sharp on our mission.
Okay.
and knowing when not to get involved.
Yeah.
Like, so.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, it's just a question because I mean, I'm getting a lot of, requests, and I'm kind of thinking like, how much do you bend and mold to take what you can now to maybe, nail down this current time? But then also like, what are some of the things that we're going to learn through this about our business model? Brian alluded to diversifying the income stream a bit.
Sure.
I mean, as entrepreneurs, you and I are already, we've talked about this many times over, sparkling water and some pho on the street. But, as organizations, do we also do the same, right?
Well, I mean, I think that what needs to be really, this will pass. I think it was like Michael mentioned. I could be wrong. The guy in Chengdu, he mentioned that these things pass, and this will pass. And the last thing I want is to be a year down, 2 years down with a health program.
Right.
At a literacy organization.
Right.
I don't want that. Like, I want a literacy organization. There are great health organizations out there that do amazing things. And so I think focus is really important. And also there are organizations, like there's great Gongos, there's great organizations in China that do everything. They do literacy, they do health, they do women's issues, they do everything. And they're fantastic. That might be a better fit for a donor than a focused organization today.
Okay.
And that's fine.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, man. Brian, my man, you've been quiet. You're no longer walking around. Any final thoughts on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really impressed by how everybody has got a pretty clear mind on this. It's really refreshing. I think that's what sets entrepreneurs or executives apart, is that we have a good, clear mind on how to approach it. For myself, I think I'm thinking about shifting the business in a more dramatic way. And I think being an entrepreneur positions us in a kind of a unique way, that we are able to be more flexible and that we are looking for opportunities. So, I'm just, almost thinking about it like, what if I were to start from ground zero right now? How would I adapt things? Because I am expecting the worst. I mean, I think 6 months to 9 months maybe is more realistic, especially because of my industry or being heavily reliant on offline training and consulting work. So that's just a different ballgame. And I think we have to think about
an incredible end of year.
Yeah, if I'm still around then, we'll see, right? So it's bridging those valleys. That I think this valley is going to be a lot more extended, and we have to see how to rally the troops around this.
All right, man. So worst case scenario, you pivot big time. Does that mean leaving China? Does that mean what does that actually mean? And what are the tools that you're going to pack in your bag and launch in the new Brian's enterprise?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. We'll have to see what the market is looking for, and again, that's being flexible, adapting to the situation. Obviously, over the past years now, I've gained a lot of strength and resources in being here. I'll use what I can, but I'm not going to be ignorant to what the opportunity is. Right? So I want to see what's needed. If I was already thinking about leaving this year, so this might accelerate it. Hopefully not. I think there's still a lot to do. So, transitioning, not leaving.
Yeah, I think a lot of people I talk to, we just got out of the trade war, right? And for a lot of people I know that were in manufacturing, they were looking at this like, wow, we just got out of that, and now we got to go into this. I'm out. Because actually, for Americans, I'll just speak, generically. The American economy is doing very well. I've talked to a number of my friends who repatriated over the last 2 years, and they had no problem finding jobs. Like I've rarely met someone who came back and struggled to find.
So, Rich, looking for a job?
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, for my friends who came back, they were able to find jobs pretty quickly. And so, for me, I think, when it comes to this conversation, I think a lot of what will catalyze this is the fact that more executives, more families will come back. They'll go back to headquarters. They'll go back to their hometown to wade this thing out. And as Americans, they're all going to follow the U.S. State Department's guidance, and they're going to wait for American, Delta, United to turn their flights back on all at the end of April. Now, let's just assume that it takes that long. Little Bobby and little Jane are in kindergarten and third grade or 12th grade or whatever. The longer that the expats are here, the longer that they stay at home or at the headquarters, the less likely I think a lot of people are to return. So to the comment that you had for your friends, Brian, about this could be an opportunity, I actually think that this is going to open up probably one of the biggest job markets for experienced half-assed in China to land great jobs middle end of this year as people really put their stake in the ground. But to Michael and to kind of Tom's point, I'm looking, and also what you were mentioning, I'm looking at this like 3 months of a lot of conversations virtual with clients, with donors, with partners about what might happen if it clears by May. If it doesn't start to clear by May, we're basically going to write summer off because everyone's going to leave anyway for vacations or school's going to be out, like whatever. So we're talking about like, what's the last half? What's October? What's September to January going to look like? And I think when people have those conversations, it's just going to make it much more difficult to kind of keep the team motivated when they're all really, we've given them all the tasks. They've written all the blog posts. They've done all the prep work. Okay, at some point we need to go fire the weapon. Like we're sitting in the desert, damn it, let's get something done. And I think this is going to cause a lot of really interesting tension inside firms. But within the market, I kind of go back to Alex, and I think Michael, you could pivot. I've worked with Michael and his family. I know their business models. I know that they've got room there to do some interesting things. I think there's a lot in the market that's going to happen that we're going to learn from and be able to apply globally when it comes to actually this digital transition we've all been talking about, but half-assed our way through. I'm still using cash in America. Delivery is still by the USPS. It's not by drones. It's not by anything too sexy. Like if China can make its way through this with everyone in their house for 3 months, only leaving every other day or once every 5 days, we're talking about real social adjustments that are going to happen. And the entrepreneurs or the businesses paying attention to that, I think it's going to be a really interesting time for them. So I don't really know where to go with it. But I definitely know for next week or the next time we run one of these, I want to talk about like what are some of the things that are happening in the space that where are people getting excited? Where have people gotten kind of like over that hump of unease and are like, just screw it, I'm going to get on with it. Because I think at the end of the day, like the lesson from I think everyone here is like, you can only control so much of this. You have to get on with it. And as entrepreneurs of different experience, we've all been through this before. Tom, you mentioned that you're a little bit better off, over the last 3 years because you learned from a crisis. Same for me. Like I'm good, I think, for 18 months at HandsOn, but I don't know. Like it really depends. Like 12 months, 9 months for sure, can extend it to 18 months depending upon how we position people's hours or whatever, right? So it takes a lot of pressure off right away. It's like when you got that money, you don't, like Michael, you're saying there's the cash flow. We made some sales so we can still service our debt. So, okay, for 3 months, at least you got that 3 months. And I think that's a luxury for a lot of people. The reality is, Alex, you were talking about the victims of this, besides those that are in the hospital, I've got families that I know that are separated because the mom has a Chinese passport. One of the children has a Chinese passport, and no one will let them into their home countries of, the husband and the other child. You have a lot of dysfunctional things happening right now. It's just like, and it's all driven by probably more by the unease, the uncertainty, the lack of information than it is like around an honest, guys, this is going to take 3 more months. Just prepare yourself, go buy food, stock up on Netflix, whatever. In 3 months, we'll be back on. And I think if everyone kind of got that information, you might have a collective shit fit, but at least people could start to prepare for the lights turning back on. So for me, that's kind of the takeaway is just keep moving, diversify your activities, diversify your income, make sure you're focused on the important things. Tom, you're focused on your programming, always have been. Having that focus in many aspects of the business, I think is a huge plus, because you've learned to understand what you can control and what you can work on for what impact, and you've learned to let go of the other stuff. I've talked about that, and Brian and I have talked about that over several of these podcasts, where having focusing on what you can do is really step one. And once you know that your staff is safe, that you have money in the bank, that you've got products that are still at least driving some conversations, then you can relax a little bit and get through this. But I do think in 2 weeks, 4 weeks from now, the internal comms story of this perspective is going to get really fascinating. Like, I think the last week's going to, like, everyone's on extended leave. It's easy. 2 weeks out, 4 weeks out, 3 months out, when it's really a process, I think we'll have very different stories to be telling. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining. Brian, as always, thank you for being my my co-host, my partner in crime. I'm sorry that you're the one there and I'm the one here. I honestly really wish I was there, but I'm appreciative that I'm not. Damn it, you should have listened to me. Anyway,
Yeah.
So, thank you very much, guys. This has been another episode of Behind the Grind with Rich Brubaker and
Brian Sam. See you later, guys.
See you later.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Rich. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Alec.
Yo, bye.